Hello, friends. We are going to be talking about the rate of perceived mental wellness chart. So, this is one of the tools that is available to you in the toolkit, and it looks like this. Okay, rate of perceived mental wellness. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. What it is very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? But Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of encompassed everything that humans kind of strive for and desire, from our most base needs all the way to our self-actualization. Where we now in behavioral science are starting to come is the understanding that understanding your needs is really important, probably the most fundamentally important aspect of managing and changing behavior. But we also need to have a better understanding of where we're at psychologically, right? Because what often happens is we don't know how to manage the balance between what we want to do and what we actually have capacity to do. And when that balance is thrown off, what can happen is that we can overreach, burn ourselves out, get exhausted, and then fall even lower in terms of our self-care and our goals than where we started, right? And so we call this the yo-yo effect. We talk about it a lot with dieting. We see it a lot in terms of that people not necessarily having the skills and the tools, and I don't mean like the calorie counting tools. I mean like the actual change management tools that they need to be able to create sustained change that they can adapt into their lifestyle in a long-term way. And so what happens is we see a big burst of motivation at the beginning of that. And then we have this period of really, really, really intense change. But when we start to hit barriers and roadblocks, there aren't any tools or support systems in place to help mitigate and manage that barrier. And so people then wind up, quote unquote, falling off the wagon and often getting really frustrated with themselves for not being able to keep the motivation going and having the willpower, because they don't understand that these things aren't intrinsic, right? That they're formulas, they're equations that your brain has to engage in on a constant basis, right? So it's not something that you're born with or something that you're born without, but it's something that you learn to manage, because everyone has an internal motivational system, right? And so coming back to the rate of perceived mental wellness chart, this is a chart that's unique to our program. And essentially all it does is give you a color coding system to help you kind of nail down and identify where you're at in terms of your mental wellness and how that will relate to your ability to take on change and manage sustainability, right? And so if you're having a really, really hard time, you're probably not in the right position to be trying to do major things. Okay, your energy system, which is part of that motivational reward system, is going to be really depleted, and your internal mechanisms for self-protection are going to actually push you towards preserving that energy, right? And they're going to try to encourage you to do everything that you can to keep yourself going in this kind of phase of really, really bad crisis. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we want to stay in crisis. It means that we want to make sure that we're planning out our transition from one stage to another, and that we recognize that there's only so much capacity to kind of work with and move around. So let's talk about the different colors and what they mean, because when I do check-ins with you, I'll be checking in on color and kind of getting a sense. Okay, so this one has been built on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, and that number one, okay, the one at the very bottom, we call that the black zone. Okay, the black zone is crisis. And I don't mean like I'm having a hard time. I mean like I am in crisis. People who are in crisis are experiencing significant mental health barriers and possibly even significant physical health barriers. Think about crisis like your kitchen is on fire. Okay, so when you are in crisis, you need to put the fire out, right? That's the number one thing. And nothing else matters in that moment except making the decision of, can I put this fire out? And if I can't put this fire out, how do I protect myself from the fire, right? And so a lot of people who find themselves in crisis start thinking about all of the things that they need to do after crisis to live the life that they want to lead. And it's not that that's a bad thing. It's that it's not really time to be planning your patio when your kitchen is on fire. It's time to put the fire out or get out of the house, okay? So to pull that analogy into our current conversation, think about the fire as your mental health, right? And when it's on fire, you can make two decisions. The first decision is, can I take control of this myself, right? And only you will be able to identify if this is something within your control that you're able to manage on your own. If you think that you have the supports and the tools in your toolkit to help you move out of the fire safely, then by all means, use the resources at your disposal, trust your instinct, right? Listen to your body and self-manage that. But many people aren't able to do that. Many people need professional supports. They need to call the fire department. Okay, they need people to come in and help them. Some of you right now entered this program very close to that black-red zone, right? And so I'm one of those supports. And most of you I've now set up with therapeutic supports. Some of you are actually getting medical supports. And we're trying to build more resources in the toolkit to get you from black to red. So red is still a really, really hot zone, okay? Red is very at risk. Think of red as warning signals telling you you could very quickly slide into a situation beyond your ability to control. Okay, so when you are in red, you're in a pretty low place. You're having a hard time finding energy and motivation, and you might be feeling really down on yourself. Okay, so this zone is still a self-protecting zone. This is where you want to take care of yourself, and whatever goals you have, you really want to make sure that they're focused on your base needs. And the reason why this is so important, so your base needs being sleep, eating, moving your body, but gently moving your body. Okay, we're not talking about going out for a marathon here. Okay, moving your body in ways that feel really positive, maybe touch and connection with the people around you, but trying to find those places in your body to ground yourself. And the reason why is that red zone is a very high stress zone. Okay, so things happen in your body when you're experiencing high levels of stress, and your base physiological needs often kind of get messed around with when those things happen in your body. And so paying special attention to those and looking to say, I am going to make sure I eat, right? I am going to make sure that I touch point with at least one person, which is why we have this weekly check-in, right? Check in with me, even if it's just to say everything sucks and hang up. At least having that checkpoint. I am going to walk for at least 5 minutes so that my joints feel good and my blood is circulating and my hormonal system is working because of that movement, right? And I'm going to give myself sleep. Okay, sleep here is essential. In the red and the black, sleep is your best friend because your body is interpreting what is happening to it as a crisis, as an actual survival problem. And so it is trying to ground up every resource it can. And the more sleep you give it, the more your brain can process all that information. Okay? From there, we head into orange, which is most people's baseline, right? Things are a little hard and I'm struggling to find routines that allow me to thrive. Okay, so your orange zone recognizes that you might not be rocking it out all the time. You're a little sketchy, but in general, the biggest issue is routines, right? You want to, you're in a good place for it, you've got a good baseline, but you just can't seem to get momentum going. So orange is a good place to start scaffolding on little goals, tiny goals, micro goals, right? I'm going to start by moving my body intentionally for 15 minutes twice a week. I am going to start by eating 2 vegetables a day or 2 servings of vegetables a day. I am going to start by making sure that I let the sun touch my skin for at least 3 or 4 minutes a day to get that really good vitamin D boost. Okay, so orange is where we want to start actually creating goals, not just a maintenance, let's put the fire out, but now that the fire is under control, now what are we going to do? What needs to happen now that the fire is under control? Is everyone else in the house safe? Do I have everything I need? Are my values or my valued objects protected, right? All of that stuff. So think about orange as the fire trucks are here, they've got it under control, but now we need to make sure that everything else is taken care of. Okay, and we want to make sure that we focus our efforts on we're in a fire, right? We're not doing great. We're not exceptional. So now probably again isn't the time to renovate the porch. From orange, we move into the yellow zone, which might be even other people's actual baseline level, right? They might have a bit of orange here and there, but they might live in the yellow, and that's excellent. Living in the yellow is a really good thing. Obviously, we all would love to live in the green zone all the time, but that's just not realistic. Life is hard, okay? Stuff happens, and stress is real. And so the yellow zone is things might not be ideal. I could use some help in creating and maintaining routines. I need to check in with myself. I need to keep myself accountable. I need to remember how delicate that motivation equation is, but I'm ready to try. I'm able to try. I have the spoons to try, I have the capacity to try. Okay, so in yellow, we can start to build on the goals that we established in orange. Okay, and we'll talk about that when we look at the template a little bit. But yellow is a good place for growth. Yellow is, I know that this is sustainable, but it's not what I want. I want more. I'm ready for more. I'm prepared for more. So when we feel that call towards living a bigger, fuller, richer, more values-based life, that's your yellow zone. Moving then into green. Green is your thrive zone. Okay, green is like, I am on fire. Things are good. I feel wonderful. I am ready to rock my life from the most intentional place ever. So green is where we can start to set stretch goals. So stretch goals are goals that are longer than 3 to 6 months, where we're looking at maybe a year down the road. So green, if I'm in a really good green zone, I am ready to consider going back to school. I am ready. I feel like I am motivated. I feel like I am excited. There's a passion burning in my soul, and I believe that I have enough supports and resources in place to make this realistic so I don't burn out and I don't hate my life. Okay, so big decisions live in the green zone. Potentially, when you're balancing kind of between the yellow and the green, then those big decisions might be able to help push you into the green zone, but they don't live anywhere underneath that. Okay, so being able to check in with yourself and say, I really want to do this thing, stop, drop, where am I actually at on my rate of perceived mental wellness? How do I actually feel in my own body, in my own life, in my own heart? Am I doing okay? And that's where the needs analysis tool that we have is so helpful, because it gives you an opportunity to go back and check in on all of those questions. And those questions, when you answer them, they give you numbers, but more importantly, they give you a chance to really reflect and look at your life and go, you know what? I'm doing better than I thought I was. I'm actually meeting all my base needs. I overall feel well in my body. I feel well in my life. I kind of like being alive. Things are good. I might be closer to yellow than I thought. Maybe I'm not as orange as I thought or as red as I thought. Okay, and so that's a good metric for us to use to get an idea of where we're at with our rate of perceived mental wellness. The important thing to remember here is that every single one of us will be variations of these colors, sometimes unexpectedly, multiple times in our life. We are all going to go through periods of black, right? We are all going to go through, whether it's the grief and loss of a loved one, whether it's being overwhelmed with work, whether it is massive illness, there will be something in your life that pushes you into the black zone. And so it's good to understand it, even if you've never lived it, because it's going to be something you have to deal with at some point. Okay, we've all been in the red zone. In fact, I imagine that most of us have been in the red zone at least a couple of times in the last year with COVID, right? We're just looking and going, it's too much. I can't handle this. I'm in a really low place and I don't know how to get myself back to feeling good because everything that matters to me feels like it's been pulled away. Okay, so we know these feelings. And I want you to start thinking about, in your rate of perceived mental wellness, draw an example in your mind of times where you remember being in the green, times where you remember being in the yellow, times where you remember being orange or red or black, so that you can ask yourself, compared to that experience, how do I feel today? Right? So I had a couple of days that were really red zoned this week. They were awful. But today I'm feeling very yellow. I'm actually really kind of borderline green. I had some great conversations and they helped me feel a lot more settled in my life. And so now I'm going to contextualize and go, okay, so a couple of days ago, that was my red zone. I was escalated. I was anxious. I wasn't feeling good in my skin. I couldn't get anything under control. Things were slipping through my fingers. I felt awful. But today I feel like myself again. Today, this is kind of a yellow zone, and I actually think I might be borderline green. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm getting my life back together today. It's good. Okay. And so having really tangible examples can be helpful. So consider printing this off and write them down. Journal. This was when I felt like this. This is when I felt like this. And then you have a benchmark that you can compare to.